Ever since Bajaj and Triumph announced the arrival of their first product together, which was just over a year ago, there's been a buzz around its two collaborative motorcycles, the Speed 400 and the Scrambler 400X. The Speed 400 was the first to arrive on the scene and in some ways is already a special motorcycle, at least in my book. That's because it demonstrates what a fruitful partnership can bring to life. A well-priced and well-finished product that serves as an entry point into one of the world's most coveted two-wheeler brands. Now, there's an updated Speed 400 and this isn't it. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Speed T4 and it is a little different, and I'm here to tell you exactly how. But before I do that, don't forget to subscribe to the AutoToday YouTube channel and hit that bell icon to stay notified every time we make a new video upload. Let's get cracking with those differences first, shall we? The T4 gets 110/70 front and 140/70 rear section tires, which is slightly lower in terms of height when compared to the Speed 400. Both of these are MRF Zapper FX2 bias ply tires rather than the Vredestein radial tires like that on the Speed 400. The front suspension duties are handled by a 43 mm telescopic front fork, and the front headlamp bracket is black steel. The handlebar, brake pedal and gear shifter are all steel, and the mirrors are conventional handlebar mounted rather than bar end mirrors. The Speed T4 has an additional graphic reading 400 on the tank and the strip near the fuel filler cap and the side panels with the Speed T4 on them. A couple of things in common are the part digital instrument cluster and the fact that the seat foam thickness is now been increased by 10 mm. This also means that the saddle height is slightly different, with the T4s at 806 mm and the Speed 400s at 803 mm. Ground clearance is different too, with the T4s sitting at 170 mm and the Speed 400s at 164 mm. Both bikes have a longer wheelbase than the older Speed 400, measuring 1406 mm for the updated Speed 400 and 1386 mm for the T4. This is down to the change in tires, altered rake angle and slightly revised geometry of this motorcycle. The T4's weight is 1 kg more than that of the Speed 400. Another crucial change is the 39-tooth rear sprocket instead of the 43-tooth one on the Speed 400, essentially giving slightly taller gearing to the T4. This brings us to the 398cc single-cylinder liquid-cooled motor, which is down on power by 9 bhp and 1.5 Nm. However, Bajaj and Triumph have reworked it in such a way that the meat of the torque band comes in between 3500 and 5500 rpm. This should translate into a more easygoing ride experience, and we shall talk about that shortly. The rear monoshock remains the same as before, and the tail section just above the rear lamp is also body colored, which is different from the Speed 400. And those are all the ways in which the T4 differs from the updated Speed 400. But are those changes just skin deep? Well, let's get out on the road and find out how different the Speed T4 is to ride when compared to the updated Speed 400. Let's talk a little more about that motor first. Bajaj and Triumph have made use of a heavier crankshaft or a high inertia crank assembly, which is around 30% higher than the Speed 400. That means this bike has its torque low down, 85% of it which is available from 2500 rpm, which means the ride experience in traffic conditions and low speeds is much better. It even idles at a slightly lower 1300 rpm rather than the Speed's 1500 rpm. Also, the T4 feels slightly simpler with a more rudimentary manual throttle body rather than the ride-by-wire on the Speed 400. Traction control isn't there either, and the top speed is rated at 135 kmph rather than 145 kmph like on the Speed. This also means that the engine mapping has been done in such a way that the T4 sits at 100 kmph at around 5000 rpm, which is quite relaxed, but there is a buzz on the handlebar from all the vibration. In my experience, the T4 is most relaxed at around 75 to 80 kmph, Cutting through traffic and riding at sedate speeds is a joy on this motorcycle. The T4 pulls very strongly right from about 3000 to about 7000 rpm, after which the power sort of flattens out. The mid-range is the strong suit of the T4, and overtaking even in higher gears isn't an issue at all. Only adding to the ride experience is the 6-speed gearbox, which feels smooth and gets a slipper clutch. The exhaust note is also different, with a slightly deeper note than that of the Speed 400. I felt it made its presence most felt at lower speeds, and it's a nice little beat to move along to in my opinion. The seating position also feels slightly high, and one has to tiptoe a bit if you're about 5'9" or 5'10" like myself. The riding posture is fairly comfortable, with one's hands stretched out in front and fairly mid-set foot pegs. It feels sporty without feeling uncomfortable. However, the ride comfort is a bit of a mixed bag. The front feels plush and comfortable in most conditions, but can dive under hard braking. The rear feels slightly stiff, and the handling is therefore not as sharp and precise as the Speed 400. The T4 feels more attuned to taking it easy through traffic and highways rather than being aggressive. The brakes too work quite well and slightly different from the ones on the Speed. It gets high friction organic pads that feel more progressive and stop straight and true in most conditions, although the disc sizes remain the same as before. Last but certainly not least, in our country at least, is the fuel efficiency figure, which is 40 kmpl, a jump from the Speed 400's 36 kmpl. This combined with a 13-litre fuel tank should give the T4 a slightly better theoretical range.
Right, now let's answer a crucial question. Is this a more affordable variant of the updated Speed 400? Well, Bajaj and Triumph feel differently. For them, this is another way of approaching the Speed 400 nameplate. In fact, there were plans to make a T4-like motorcycle right when the Speed 400 was first being developed. You know what? It does make sense if you think about it. There is a need for an easygoing iteration for the easy rider out there, but I do feel that this application would have made more sense in, let's say, a Bonneville 400. Now that's a motorcycle I would love to see, and I have my fingers crossed. I also feel that the price for the Speed T4 could have been a little lower, let's say rupees 2 lakh or rupees 2.10 lakh, just for a nice whole number. To sum up, I'd like to say that the T4 serves as an even more accessible entry point into the world of Triumph, and that, for all intents and purposes, is a good thing. Thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.